Greetings, Titans, and good morning, or good afternoon, or whenever it is you're listening/watching to this. This is Coffee Talk with Jared Barto, and I decided I was going to go with a different setup today and use my actual office setup. So I have my blue screen up. As you can see, I have the logo in the back there, or just like bumper title, whatever you want to call it. I am using my lapel today, so hopefully the audio quality is a little bit better because it is a podcast more than it is a video podcast. So that's good. And I will be using a different camera for today. And it's not because I don't want to talk with you in a high definition that it is. I just wanted the audio to be a little bit stronger than where we're at. So I want to welcome you again. Make sure you get your warm beverage to join us. I will be using my Cancer mug again. I'm not going to talk any astrology this morning here. I'm actually going to set it up with the same way that we did last time with our last episode. If you're binging these, you're probably just going boom, 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 going, Jared, I know the format. It's fine. But these are being released on a weekly format. So the goal right now is to get all of these episodes out on a Wednesday morning for you so you can have it for your drive in. You can watch it on YouTube. I believe we'll be having it on other locations eventually, either my own website or Rumble or, excuse me, wherever we need to go. That does not become an issue with Facebook and YouTube and all the other big names, so we can say what we need to say and get this out without hurting anybody's feelings. We're going to talk about that today. There are three main topics that we'll be hitting every single time we do this. We'll be talking about life, business, and usually stuff that's going on in the world. And the world can really be you, your own world. It could be the world around you. It could be anything in that space. So it's really open for discussion at that point. And I do have a couple of articles I have saved that I do want to talk about towards the end of the show. And it's really just to give you an idea of like what other people are thinking, that when we're not alone in our thought process. And if you do feel that way sometimes, that is acceptable and it's a normal feeling to have. But today, the biggest focus I'm going to be hitting on is a listener question that came in and asked, and this kind of trails into business, but it's going to lead me into a lot of different areas, asking about introverts and what it's like to have conversations with people, disappear for a while, and then get those conversations going back up again. And that's something that speaks a little close to home as growing up as an introverted type person, and then realizing that, oh my gosh, I could be extrovert, and then realizing that there's a combination between the two that we're going to dabble on a little bit this morning as we talk. Then we're going to get into a little bit of violent communication, so you understand the difference between a violent and non-violent discussions. And then we're going to wrap up with power of intention and a few of the articles I found around the web that I think would go well with that. So there's going to be a lot to do today, a lot to get done. So that being said, I'm going to take a sip of coffee and we're going to get started. Go. That is good. I didn't burn myself this time, but that is good. So let me preface this by letting you know that I personally am more, if we're going to align on introvert, extrovert, I myself tend to be in the introverted side, where I am fine being on my own. I am fine quiet time. I am fine if I've got nowhere to go, nowhere to be, and I'm just stuck at home. So when the world stuff happened in 2020 and everyone's like, oh, you need to stay home, you need to do all this, some people were freaking out, not having a good time. Me, on the other hand, I'm like, this is my everyday. Like, this is nothing new to me. Thank you, because now you all get to see what it's like. And some people had trouble with it. Some people did not find the joy that could be in it. And it was a really scary time. There was a lot of things happening in the mind space that we have and the way that we approach situations that maybe we weren't sure how to handle it. I mean, I remember doing a journal entry in my phone that I was actually slightly concerned. I was like, the way that everything's being made out to be, it sounds like they want the impending end of the world to happen. And when I say they, I mean the people reporting on everything that's going on. When abruptly kids are pulled from schools, abruptly jobs are like, you need to go home now. Like they're making it made it seem like there was nuclear war happening. Nuclear, right? War happening, that we needed to get like bomb shelters. We needed to hoard things. And then there was the whole toilet paper issue, that all the toilet paper just somehow disappeared overnight. All the hand sanitizer. And the jokes were like, what have you guys been using up to this point that now we are out of toilet paper? And of course I had the thoughts like, well, you know, there's people need to make money and just follow the trail of where I would go. So this is not one of those episodes, I promise. I'm just leading into where a lot of this discussion will be. And in 2020, it changed the way that people communicate. Zoom, which I'm using right now to record this one, became this vehicle. It blew Skype out of the water, destroyed Skype in that sense that people weren't asking, oh, what's your Skype handle? I remember going for work in 2019 and people saying, oh, what's your Skype? What's your I'm like, oh, cool, let me get set that up here. I don't really use Skype, I use Zoom, but that's okay. I was using Zoom in like 2017, before it was popular. The internet industry was using Zoom for most of their communication. And then 2020 happened and boom, here we are. So what does this all mean? It changed the way we communicate with each other, and it changed the way that we would do business. It changed the way we would handle life. Everything was like cleared. It's like a level playing field to get to where we wanted to be and how we wanted to be as people. There were no more requirements that you needed. If you recall, back in like May of 2020, June of 2020, there was this calming. There was this thing that was occurring where it didn't matter how much money you had in your bank account. It didn't matter how many businesses you were running. It didn't matter if you were with somebody or not with somebody. It didn't matter that it's like everyone got an official restart. Now, I don't mean like reset of the world. I mean, for you, it's like a restart to recreate something new, to be something new, to think about that in a space of, if I don't want to go out tonight, there's no pressure. I don't have to. I can blame it on something else. I'm just not feeling well. Oh, no, it's fine. If you're not feeling well, like how many times now be honest, if you're on your own, that's fine. If you're listening with friends and everything, you don't have to point at each other. But how many times did you use the world situation as, I just don't really want to go out because reasons, right? And you'd be like, oh, well, I don't have a mask, or I don't want to, or I don't want to get vaccinated. I am vaccinated, like whatever your situation would be. You had the opportunity to use situations around you. Now, the challenge for an introverted type person, and I'm going to get to the question here in a hot minute and what I would do. So what it comes to an introverted person is they don't have to worry about making excuses to stay home. The introvert side would have to come up with excuses to leave, to be the extrovert. Now, my wife is the extrovert. My bride, beautiful woman, Liz, she is the more extrovert in our family. And as you watch some of these episodes, or you listen to these and you see other things I'm doing online in this space and you do research on me, you'll be like, Jared, that is nigh impossible. You seem to be the extroverted one. I think you're lying to us. And I'm not. I am extroverted when I need to be, and I will become that person that needs to lead when it's time to do that. When I don't have to, I am in pajama pants with slippers on, because that is the comfort side. I'm usually wearing a hoodie, or I had to take one off because it was too interacting with the blue screen, or I'm in a hoodie and a fleece, and I am sipping a cup of coffee, reading a book with headphones on, just kind of blocking the entire world out. I might be playing a video game where, again, I'm blocking everything out. I will, at that point, I'll like turn off phones. I'll go on airplane mode. I will do all of that to just escape. And I use that as a way to recharge. I do that as a way to get back into my groove and what that looks like. So what I mean by this for you, now the question that comes into mind, okay? I made some notes. I did write it down. And in fact, let me pull those up here as I'm doing this. And it's not because I didn't remember it. I want to get the question accurate and the scenario. So typically, when I'm working with clients, or I'm working with people that are looking to set goals in their personal life, their business life, all that, we end up talking about areas that they would like to improve in. And most of the time, this comes down to, well, I don't even know what I want. I don't even know what I want to get better at. I don't even know. So we'll write notes. We'll talk about these things, and I'll make recommendations based off of what I'm hearing, and more like a psychological type of setup that most of the time we want something, but we're concerned that the safetiness of our life is in jeopardy. So then we don't try, right? We just want to stay safe. And our brain's like, every 5 seconds, make sure you're safe. Don't do that. Make sure you're safe. So we always have to rewire that in the space. So that's why I wanted to get notes to make sure we're really clear on what we're going to be talking about. So the question was, how do you keep or start conversations going with an introverted person? I'm going to take a sip of coffee. I encourage you to do the same. We're going to dive right in. So how do you keep and how do you start conversations going for introverted type people? Now, again, I will tell you, introvert and extrovert are all titles and labels that would allow us and an excuse to behave however we want and act however we want. I'm going to counter that and tell you that you are neither introverted or extroverted. I'm also going to challenge the anagrams. I'm also going to challenge all types of numerology and everything like this. Not because I don't believe it, not because of anything like that. I'm going to challenge it simply because, with respect, that we as people tend to use this as reasons to justify our actions and our behaviors, instead of looking at what our makeup is, instead of looking at the habits, which we'll talk about in the next segment, about habits and routines and what that does, and then the thoughts and the feelings that we have about ourselves that then lead to the decisions that we make. Okay? At the very core of it, you are neither introverted or extroverted. And if you're one or the other, there's something that occurred in your past, recent, or whenever that allowed you to say, in order to stay safe, in order to make sure that I will be in a safe space, I will not, boom. And it's either I will not go out with my friends anymore. I will not go out to dinner. If I do, I will order it in and have it brought to my house. I will not do pickup anymore because this happened, this happened, this happened, this happened. Whatever it is, we're looking at this as an excuse for the behaviors that we give, right? So I'm gonna come in the guise of that. And if you're like, Jared, I disagree with you, perfect. I would encourage you then to sign up for emails, because what I will do is every now and then I will shoot out a message about the episode. I will talk about the topics ahead of time so you can be aware, which I'll give you the link. It should be in the show notes. You can share with me, I disagree. I don't like this topic. And if there's a place that you would like to have that open forum discussion, you let me know, right? I had put out the question of, we could open up a Discord server, we could have a Slack channel, we could do whatever that keeps the conversation. We can even just use a straight up old school forum board that keeps the conversation going after the show is done. Because that's a lot of time from a Wednesday to wait to see what it is. Maybe we'll call it like after hours discussion. We can get into like the really heavy stuff and not worry about being censored anywhere, right? Anyway, so here's the situation. The situation is this person starts a conversation, has no problem doing that, which again counters the introvert side, but starts a conversation, then lets them die. And there's two reasons that they shared. One, they don't know how to keep the conversation going, or two, they get busy with work. And this was one of the paraphrase quotes. I can get them in my sales funnel, then get busy working. I don't know how to restart the convo again when I'm available to talk. You ever been in that situation before? Or maybe you have a conversation that you get going, maybe texting, maybe on Tinder, maybe on LinkedIn, maybe whatever it is, whatever communication that you're having, and you start this process of getting to know somebody or figure out why they're in your world or what they want from you and what you can give to them and all this. And you kind of lose interest. And then we look at ourselves going, what did I do wrong, right? There must be something wrong with me if I couldn't keep the conversation going. I would say that it's not really about that. What about a conversation? You're texting back and forth with a friend, right? And you get into some serious stuff, some heavy things, and then all of a sudden you stop talking, you stop texting. What happened? Did you get busy? Oh no, I responded in my head, but I completely forgot. I thought I sent the text, and it's like 3 months later. Or Facebook Messenger will do something even better. It'll keep a log of your conversation if you don't delete it, right? And if you go through, but the other person did delete it and go, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I thought I responded to you, but here I didn't. It's been stuck in my head, and it's been 3 months since we talked. How do you start that back up? I'm going to give you some suggestions here, okay? You may not be in a situation like that. You may not have any issue with conversation, which I would encourage you to stick around for the next few moments, because we're going to get into the violent communication side and what the counteracting pieces of that will be. In this case, you start a conversation, you end up leaving for whatever the reason is, you get busy with work and all this. I'm gonna put this out here, and it's gonna get emotional, okay, for the next 4 minutes. So buckle up, hang tight, and I have an ending to it, I promise. There's a reason. If you start a conversation and it ghosts and it dies off from your end, you weren't that interested. It wasn't important enough to you to keep that conversation going. Think about the things that fire you up. Think about something that you really are excited about. There is one video game that I could talk about ad nauseum that is no longer popular, but I enjoy it. And it's like a nostalgic game. And I have a buddy of mine that if I call up and say, hey man, I want to talk about this, he and I will go hours on memories. We'll go hours on strategies. We'll go hours. and it's not a replayable game in that space where it changes. Like there's randomized effects like a roguelite or anything like that in this world, where a roguelite is you go through it, the environment changes around you, what you get in that space changes, and it's constant replayability. Just the core structure of the game is there, and it changes up. It's like living life, really. The core structure is there, but something changes. Okay, you can tell I'm dovetailing, right? Or I'm losing track. The point is, I can talk about that nonstop. But if you sit me down and want me to talk about something that is not interesting to me, maybe on the quantum physics, it's interesting enough to me to have a conversation, but not enough to like dive in to string theory and everything that can be unpacked in that area. That's not that exciting to me. I may not continue that conversation. I might just die off and be like, that wasn't fun. I'm done. I have a friend of mine that we will get in conversations, and when it hits a point where I'm like, there's some self-defeating behavior going on, I just will stop. I haven't found a way yet personally to say to this person without hurting their feelings and opening up that can, I don't know if I really want to talk about this, or I'm not comfortable having this conversation. I'm going to stop. And I think that's what it comes down to. What are our own personal boundaries of we're just done talking to people, of something happened, we just don't want to keep that conversation going. If this isn't a business discussion and you're talking to a lead, you're talking to somebody who's requesting information from you, that is your work. You're not busy. That's your work right then and there. Everything, if you're in customer support, your customer service, you'll have people going, oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you. No, my sole focus is to make sure I can help you get what you need. You're not interrupting me. It's my job to be here for you. I'm just working on other things while I'm waiting for somebody to reach out and say they need some help on something. I've done support jobs for 20 years. That's what that is. Any type of customer service, any type of fulfillment where you're working front facing with a client in any space, a customer, even if they're not your personal ones, but the company you work for, whatever, your focus is them. They're not interrupting you. If anything, you're waiting for them. You're just doing other things while you're waiting. So if the conversation stops, it's just not interesting enough to you. You don't care enough to keep it going. So that comes into an internal reflection of what's happening in this conversation that I care about. Maybe my attention to it is bored because it has nothing to do with what I want to talk about. Well, what do you want to talk about right now? What do you want to get done right now? That leads into, is this conversation going to be good enough for me? And do I want to keep this conversation going? So what happens then if we stop? We can unpack this. I could do an entire class on just this alone. But again, when it comes to the timing, I want to stay as close to timing and topics as possible. So you, the listener or viewer, do not get sidetracked yourself. Allow me to do that. I'm probably going to go over time a little bit here to get this point across. So then what do you do when you want to restart the conversation? There's some ownage that has to happen. If you stop the conversation, own up to it. Thank you so much for your patience. I looked at our conversation and I did not reply back to what you just said. I would love to keep talking. Do you have time now? Give them the opportunity. Would you be willing to open up conversation with me again? I know it sounds like really wordy, but think about that. Would you be willing to open conversation with me again? You're giving them an action. You're stating something that you would like, but it's not a demand, it's a request. Would you be willing to do this? Would you be open to a conversation with me? Would you be opposed to starting up conversations with me again? But then you also have to look at it and go, do I really want this conversation again? Do I really want to go down this road again? Let me review. And if you don't, you're like, hey, thank you so much for your patience while getting back to me. You don't have to, or thank you for your patience while I got back to you. You don't have to give reasons, nor do you have to give excuses. I remember doing that a while ago on my email list, and I had a viewer, email person, whatever, subscriber, I guess, at that point, email me back. No, you don't need to apologize if you've been busy. In fact, I didn't even know. It'd been like 2 weeks since I emailed, and I was emailing every other day. It was 2 weeks. I'm like, you don't have to apologize. I don't need your reasons. Just email. Be like, hey, it's good to see you guys again. Start back up. People are either going to accept you for who you are or they're not. But you can't do anything about that to change that. You can't. You can't force them into it. You can ask them to be willing. So if you're doing this on a business side, and we'll get into it more in the business space, but understand that if you are in this space where a conversation started and then it stopped, and maybe you're to blame or they're to blame, it's just not important enough. That's it. I wish I could make it more complicated than that. This is a simple fashion where it's like, well, Jared, that seems very, very insensitive to say it like that. It can seem insensitive, but think about it. When was the last time you were on a phone call with somebody back in the day? I'm going to date myself a little bit here with a rotary dial phone or a big old touch phone, and you were done in the conversation. What did you do? Typically, you'd put it on speaker, mute yourself, and put the handset down and go do something else. Tell me you don't do that now. If somebody's boring the crap out of you on the phone, you don't put it on mute, put it on speaker and go do something else, or put your AirPods in or whatever you're listening to, or your Beats or Anchors or whatever, and you put yourself on mute and just let them talk. You don't do that? You believe it or not, most of the conversations that you participate in, you probably want something deeper out of that convo. And we're going to tie into that into the next segment because I want to talk about different types of communication. Again, reiterate this and get into a repetition. But listener, I hope that that's helpful. Like I said, I can dive into this. We can have some after discussion episodes opening that space. You guys just let me know what you want and how you want to do that. I can set up any type of configuration that you need. That's the beauty of being in technology since I was like 10. It's knowing to build anything we need to build to get done what we need to get done. I'm going to take a quick break. If I have a message for you that's important enough as a little sponsored thing, I'm going to play that now. If not, it's just going to flow right in the next segment. You might see like a little fade in, fade out with the sound. But I appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in for this first part. I'm going to take a quick break, warm up my coffee. I suggest you do the same, and I will see you in just a hot minute. You know, I thought I was addicted to coffee. I might be. I think I said to somebody else, like, I'm addicted to coffee in a sense that I actually do drink it for the flavor. I actually do drink it because I like it. Some people actually drink coffee because they just want to. It's like, oh, I need it every morning. I'm like, nah, I don't. There was a time I had strep throat, or a mini version of strep throat, a few weeks ago, and it lasted like 3 or 4 days. Couldn't drink anything, coffee, tea, was actually burning it and all that. And you know, I just couldn't get to it. And I thought for a second, oh my gosh, maybe I'm kicking the habit. But as soon as my throat was fine, I was like, yep, let's drink it. So maybe it's like it's a binging addiction that I don't really need it, but I know that when I can have it, then I like to have it. But I actually like the flavor. What's your favorite so far for like coffee or tea that you drink? I know it's coffee talk, but you know, hot beverage, warm beverage, non-alcoholic right now. Sake is really good, but I'm trying to keep this in a non-alcoholic sense. What is your go-to? Like, you let me know. What is your go-to of a coffee blend that you like? The one I'm using right now is actually from a local farm. They grow, you know, bring their own beans in, grow them however they're doing it, but they're reselling it. So I have to do some research where they get it. There's one that's local to us. It's about 25 minutes drive to go get it. Well worth it. I'm drinking it right now. And there's another one out in up in Connecticut called Salute Coffee. And we got involved in them. Like, this is not sponsored, by the way. We get involved with them because friends of ours, the wife was dealing with a version of cancer that they were supporting. Like, Salute would give, I forget the percentage amount, but they would give that as part of the recovery for her and the payments she needed to pay for surgeries and for treatments and all these kinds of things. So their air roasted coffee, really, really good. Like, I still just haven't found like better than that. And you know, some people will send me a few things and be like, oh, Jared, try this one, try this one. I'm like, they're good, but I don't know. It's just it hasn't changed. It's really good in that space. So anyway, why am I sharing all this? Well, it's Coffee Talk with Jared Barto. But the biggest thing is we finished that first segment about communication on an introvert level and an extrovert level. And that we stop conversations because they're not important enough to us. Now, I said I wanted to dive a little bit further into that, and I will have a separate class that we can do this information. But the biggest thing that I do want to talk about now in this space, though, is a lot of what we do is entirely based off of the habits and the routines that we come together. Now, in the past 3 weeks, I did not try this, right? Because I know you'll say like, well, you know, in order to grow yourself in the business world or give yourself an upper hand, that most entrepreneurs will read 1 book a week. I'm like, that is exhausting to me. I like to read, but 1 book a week seems like I'd be rushing through the information. I'm just reading it to reading its sake. Like, I like to read and immerse myself. I'm that type of reader, watcher, gamer that I really want to be in this experience. I really want to feel it. Like, I want this to be a part of me that I can resonate with the characters. I can resonate with what you're talking about, because then it makes this ultra sense to me that I feel great by being in your world. So within the past 3 weeks, I didn't plan this, but I bought this book, The Power of Habit. This is by Charles Duhigg. I bought this one at a library sale down the road from us. They do it 2 times a year. And I was like, this looks pretty good. I typically will like flip through a book and be like, oh, okay, I think I might like this. This one, pages was 280 something. The font is like really small. Like you can see the font size, and this is for the video, or this is a normal like 10 point, 12 point Times New Roman font, a single and a half spaced or 1.5 double spaced, whatever you want to talk about it. So anyway, so I read this one. I'm like, this makes sense. Power Habit makes sense. Then I also had another book I bought online called The Coaching Habit, and I got it just out of, I saw it and like, hey, I like to coach. I'm going to give this a shot. Michael in this book resonates a lot. Oh, you see it's blue in the blue screen. Yep. So he resonates a lot with the power of habit. I'm like, okay, I'm starting to pick up something, right? There's a constant theme that's going on. Then I bought this book a while ago, and this was, again, not a recommendation by anybody, just I was interested in the topic and I wanted to see it. And again, because I'm in a communication space, because I coach, because I'm in high ticket sales and all this kind of stuff, like I need to be very mindful, or I would be best to be mindful of what I'm saying, how I'm saying, and how I'm presenting myself to people. Like if I want to tell them to F off, there's probably a better way to do it than just telling somebody to F off. Like there better be a good reason behind it. So then I purchased Nonviolent Communication. And this one is by Marshall B. Rosenberg. So in this one took me a little bit longer to get through, simply because there's a lot of material in there that I was challenged with. A lot. And I know for some people reading, they might get in that space of, well, I want to read it, but it throws my mind. It throws me off. Like I have this like ADHD type thing where I'll read through a story and I'll read like 3 pages and not know what I read. So I have to go back. I'm like, I think what's happening in that space is you're just involved, that you're just kind of seeing it go by. Like you don't need to know those details, but you can go back and get them. And a lot of that was happening in the nonviolent communication. And I thought to myself, maybe I'm missing something here that I need to be a part of, or I'm going to be missing out. Like it's going to be a bad thing if I say that I've read this book, but I don't really understand or practice any of the exercises. So what I really like about what Marshall does here is after he had the chapters, he'll do like an exercise and he'll give you examples. It's not like, get out a pen and pad and like write your own stuff. He'll give you like 10 examples of the topic he just talked about in a way that somebody might use these phrases and these communication methods. And you have to determine if you agree with him or don't. Not whether you're right or wrong. Just, do you agree with him, yes or no? And then he will respond, I agree with you. If you selected this as an option that you agree with this one, I would agree. Or I would not agree, and here's why. And he give a reason why he agrees. I'm like, I like that so much better than right or wrong. I would agree with you or I would not. And that started to get me thinking on the differences between a violent communication and a nonviolent. So for his, right, on the back of the book, I'm going to read the back of the book just to give you an idea of what this is, and then we're going to talk a little bit about what we're doing with this. And I'm actually reading Self-Defeating Behavior. I didn't bring that book up, but that's the next one, and that's another like 200 pager that it's going to take a lot of time for me to go through because I really care about that material, right? There's a lot of traits I'm already realizing in me going, oh crap, like I educate on this. I thought it'd be a little bit better than this in that space. So anyway, so according to Marshall B. Rosenberg, on the back of the book, what is violent communication? If violent means acting in ways that result in hurt or harm, then much of how we communicate, judging others, bullying, having racial bias, blaming, finger pointing, discriminating, speaking without listening, criticizing others or ourselves, name calling, reacting when angry, using political rhetoric, being defensive, or judging who's good/bad or what's right/wrong with people could indeed be called violent communication. In this space, right there had to be at least one that you thought to yourself, oops, I might be guilty of this. A biggest one for me growing up, since I was raised in the church, was good and bad, right and wrong. And that was a lot of challenge to get through on a personal level. And I told my my one son last night, the only reason that I did not have sex before marriage for a while was I didn't want to burn in hell. I didn't want to have that sin of, oh boy, you had sex before marriage, now you're unloved, go burn. And that was how I was raised in the church, in that space. That's not for me to say that the church is bad. In the way that I was brought up, that was a training put in me that I needed to deny myself parts of me, so I didn't burn in hell. Like, well, why would those desires, why would that be put in me to then just be denied? So it turned into a whole like self journey, which we're not going to talk about here. That is probably an after hours discussion. Right now, I just want to talk about the violent communication versus the nonviolent communication and see where you might be balancing back and forth, because that is something that I talk a lot about with my own clients of, well, what makes you say it in this way? What if we phrased it this way? Well, where is that coming from? Are you feeling certain ways like this? If I understood correctly, are you saying this? And we'll get into that. That's an example. But there's probably something I said. I'll read those really quick again to see if there's any that really parked, you just had a space that stuck in you and you're like, oh, can't get past that. Judging others, bullying, racial bias, blaming, finger pointing, discriminating, speaking without listening, criticizing others or ourselves, name calling, reacting when angry, not responding, reacting, right? Using political rhetoric, being defensive or judging who's good or bad or what's right or wrong with people. That type of setup. It's about 12 or 13 in there. I've been guilty of at least every one of those at some point or another. All right. One of my sisters, she would have fallen into having a racial bias, and that's because of how she was raised. Now, it's not because her parents did something wrong. We have the same father, just different mother. It's not because of what they did wrong. It's because of shows that she were watching, the people that she were hanging out with, that if you were not the same skin color as her, then something was wrong with you. And we had a nice little chat, and I was like, I have a lot of friends that are not of the white persuasion, and sometimes I'll spend more time with them than I will with my own light-skinned friends here. The idea with that is I was raised differently in my culture, that we accept everybody, right? If we turn you away, it will have nothing to do with what you look like and how you look like, right? And I think we're in this world right now where it's like you can't say things like that because people will get offended. Listen, I have Black friends, I have Puerto Rican friends, Mexican friends, I have white friends, whatever color it is that you're trying to do. I will never find myself in a situation to be 100% understanding of the trials and tribulations all of my friends have had to go through, especially one of my really close friends being Black and really close friends being white, and they're married together, and the dynamic that they are facing every single day, even in a county that is supposedly accepting of whatever your beliefs are, whatever and all that. It's hard for them. So I will never fully understand it, but I can at least attempt to empathize where that might be a feeling cast out because of who I am as a person, right? Now, again, I'm not going to really dive into that. Just know that when it comes to, that's the violent side. When it comes to the nonviolent, and I'll give again what he has in the back, it's not going to be enough just for me to read the back for you to get in that space of, oh, I can practice this, no problem. It's going to take a lot of effort. I can see myself, it's going to take me a few more moments to really dial a lot of this in, especially with being a dad, of having children of my own and being a stepdad and all this. There's a lot of nonviolent communication that I would like to keep using because I'm sensing that there's a shift going on, and I really like to be ahead of it before it takes me away. So what is nonviolent communication according to Marshall Rosenberg? Nonviolent communication is the integration of four things: consciousness, a set of principles that support living a life of compassion, collaboration, courage, and authenticity; language, understanding how words contribute to connection or distance; communication, knowing how to ask for what we want, how to hear others even in disagreement, and how to move towards solutions that work for all; means of influence, sharing power with others rather than using power over others. So nonviolent communication serves our desire to do three things: increase our ability to live with choice, meaning, and connection; connect empathetically. Let me try that again. Connect empathically. Oh, geez. How about empathetically? I like that. With empathy. Connect with empathy with self and others to have more satisfying relationships. Sharing of resources so everyone is able to benefit. Now, I could not spend the next 2 minutes or so trying to explain everything I've learned in a nonviolent communication. Just know with the author dealing with, like, he shares a lot of how he grew up, and especially with Jewish background and where he was raised, and how he personally has gone through his own transformation of what this type of violence can be in communication and nonviolent. I'm going to share with you, because we're going to lead into some Dr. Wayne Dyer stuff in the next segment. So I don't want to tease. I'm going to tease a little bit too much, but a lot of this will then stem in what are our true intentions with people and with ourselves. Do we really, really, at the end of the day, want to hurt people to get what we want? I do not believe in the center of my heart that people are maliciously intended just because they're maliciously intended. It's hard to subscribe to that. I'm not an empathizer for people who have done world situations that are rough. I'm not going to back them and say that they had reasons for what they did. Though I can see from the other spectrum that maybe they were missing something over time, that every single day they didn't have whatever it would be that they needed, and it destroyed that part of them over time. That I can believe. And at that point, in that space, I don't know if it's possible to save somebody in that area. But I also know it's not my job to do that. Neither is it for yours. In order for nonviolent communication to work and be as effective as it can be, it doesn't require you or I to sacrifice who we are entirely to help people get to where they want to be. In fact, it would almost be the opposite. We'd almost have to focus on ourselves a lot. There's one section that Marshall talked about, where he had mentioned that there's like 3 steps. There's like 3 awareness levels of all of our ways that we handle things. And the first one is like that denial of having those feelings or things about that. The other is being arrogant, of like knowing what our feelings are and like being like, no, don't you dare talk to me like that. Like, having that. And then it turns into the empathetic side of expressing in a way that allows people the safe space to express how they truly want with you. There's a lot of conflict resolution that I've done over the years, probably a lot that you've been a part of or maybe have had done with you. And a lot of this stems in, what are you feeling? Like, are you feeling a certain way because I said this and it turned into that? And like in a genuine sense, right? Having those opportunities to get into that space allows you and I to get away from the judging. It allows us to get away from the blaming, and not just a let's pray about it way, but a let's do something about it way. We can still pray about it. You can still meditate on it. At some point or another, there needs to be an action to be taken in order for something to change. Now, people have said, and again, I'm not going to get into the religious side. I was just talking to my son the other night too. When people are praying together and they pray about something together, that is a strong form of a meditation that allows people to get on the same wavelength to come up with a solution together. There still needs an action to be taken. It may not be directly on you, but you're taking the indirect action. There might be something completely out of your control. Like for me, we could make it as broad as just world hunger. Does that mean that I need to stop eating because I need to empathize with somebody like that? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Does it mean that I need to take everything that I own and give it to everybody over the world and make that happen? There was something that was addressed to Elon Musk months and months and months ago at the time of this recording, that he had so much money, and there was something about like the world hunger. It's like, well, if he gave this, it would end world hunger. And he's like, game on, let's do it. What happened to that? It has nothing to do with somebody just throwing money into something like that to make it happen. There was definitely a judging side of that. There was definitely a blaming side. But I can guarantee you that I cannot try to fix that problem. Like if I feel negative about that problem over there of world hunger, me thinking negatively about that is not going to make it better. Me telling my kids, you can't have another bowl of cereal because we need to ship that overseas. So I'm going to deny my own family to try to help the world in that space, right? I'm getting into some like interesting things here that I don't have enough time to really unpack it here. But again, we can talk about this in between the shows and after an email and all this kind of stuff. And I'm really putting a target on my back with this, and that's okay. I'm encouraging you to reach out and let me know what you're thinking, feeling about everything we're talking about. But if we can find a way to communicate properly with each other without the judging, without the blame, without the finger pointing, without deciding if you're right or wrong or I'm right or wrong, and find a space in the middle ground that we can make sure both of our needs are getting met and we can come to agreeable terms on those areas, especially in the business side. That's how it works. We come to negotiation. I have a good sense about this with Marshall, that a lot of what we're trying to get done will get done in a very great fashion. And that's how we slowly start to see the impact of kindness and empathy and compassion really spread out into the world, which we're going to talk about a little bit with some Dr. Dyer material with the power of intention and in a few more articles I found. So I encourage you to stick around for the last segment. Again, going to do another warm up of the coffee. I appreciate you. If you've got to run and you got to listen and watch the rest of this later on, I still appreciate it. But for me, I'm going to take a quick break. If I got a message for you, it's going to pop now. If not, I will see you in the next segment. All right, let's get back into it. So, covered a lot of material in that previous segment, and I can hear some of you and see some of you just kind of going, man, I'm going to light him up. And then a few of you are like, I can see that. I'd like to know more. And that's good. I would encourage you to remain curious and interested in how the world operates and how people around us are getting things done that they would like to get done. This is not an easy thing, right? Everything that we do is not easy. And it wasn't meant to be discouraging. It wasn't meant to be challenging in that way that we can't get it done. But the thing that we look at is that it seems like there's so many right or wrong things that if we don't do it right, then we're going to hurt this person's feelings. And if we don't ask the right questions, then they're going to hurt our feelings. And there's so much of this back and forth of, well, I just want to say the right thing. And I don't want to do the wrong thing because then that makes me the bad guy. And then there has to be a good guy and a bad guy and a blah, 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 blah. Like, we get stuck in that. I still do myself. I'm not saying all this because it's like, oh, Jared's better than you. It's not. I'm not better than you. There's certain things I've just been studying longer and practicing longer that I have experience to talk about. It doesn't make it right or wrong. It's just my share of this. I mean, this is coffee talk. This is what we do. Like, we open up and become vulnerable over coffee. And I only have a few more moments with you for this episode. So I want to use that time to be clear on one thing that has really been powerful to me ever since my early 20s and growing. Like, something that I think without it, I don't know. I honestly don't know where I'd be without some of the influences that I've had and some of the material that was given to me at an earlier age. Just for those people to go, I wish I would have had it or even earlier than your age. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to pass it down to my children as soon as I can, so they get an opportunity to have it even further and faster before I was able to have it. But it comes by a man by the name of Dr. Wayne Dyer. Now, I think I said Dwyer in the last one because I was thinking Parks and Rec in the end of the segment. So maybe I'll have to do an edit on that if I missed it. If I did, you're probably like, oh, cringing. Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I've done that in the past. It's something I'm working through of not making the right names. So Dr. Wayne Dyer, I got access to him on an audio recording on CDs. Now, again, this is dating back to when in my early 20s, my late teens, early 20s. And at that point, I was starting to get into the situations where you could sell stuff to people and they would sell stuff to people and they would sell stuff to people. And you would start to make money by people doing work that you didn't have to do anymore. Some people have called it a pyramid type scheme. Some people still call it a pyramid scheme. Some people have said it's the bane of existence. Some people have made millions and invested billions back into it. Talking about the MLM multi-level marketing space that I found myself getting into in my late teens, early 20s. And I really wasn't sure about it until I actually got into that. And I was like, oh, this is one of those things. And I think all of us every 4 years at some point or another get those types of opportunities to jump in there and be like, okay, this one's it. This is the one where I'm going to financially break free and I'm going to have some freedom. And there's always an opportunity that presents itself. So at that point, I was like, I'm broke. I'm a broke college student that just graduated from tech school. I didn't have a lot of money, and I was working with my uncle and grandfather in their insurance company, and they legit could not pay me anymore. Like, after I graduated, my uncle looked at me and goes, listen, you're like $40 an hour, and I do not have the budget for that. So I'm going to give you a couple weeks, go find something else. and best of luck to you. So basically I was fired. I was given a 2-week notice to go find something else. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. I'll do that. And I started working a lot of odd jobs. I started finding areas that I could try to connect, right? Because I actually had this calling in my life that I was going to be in a pastoral sense, that I was going to be a pastor at some level. So I'm like, well, if I'm going to be a really good pastor, I think I should have these odd jobs so I can really try to connect with as many people as possible. So I was a stock boy. I was in retail. I was doing this and that. I was working a yard. I was in mechanics. I was, you name it, whatever job it was. The only thing I don't remember doing is any like trash collecting, but I did that as volunteer work. So I'm like, I had a little bit of experience in that. Getting sick from that, you have minor infections because you get cut and like sewage crap gets in your like literal sewage crap. Anyway, the point that I'm bringing up here is I was always open to listening to what people are doing and always open to any type of opportunities. And that's what goes along in the world is like, if you are paying attention, most of usually what you're looking for is there. You won't get a clear answer. It's usually a whisper. And for me at that point, I was broke and I was looking for money. So I was given the book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And it was like, it's going to help you make money. And I was like, oh, cool. Like what? Am I going to build something and all that? And I read through it at the age of like 19, 20. I'm like, this is the dumbest book I've ever read in my entire life. Like I was so ego with it. Like, this is so dumb. How are you supposed to make money with this? Like, it's just talking about mind stuff. Like my mind is fine. Just show me where the money is. Show me the money. Like I need that in my life right now. I got bills to pay, man. Reading a mindset book is not going to fix that for me. I need to make money. I got to find a job that makes sense, that I can support just basic living. I need something now. So then my uncle was talking to me and he's like, listen, I want to introduce you to a couple things I've been listening to, because he was doing, I think he was doing Amway at the time, but he was also in like insurance sales and mastering materials back there. Like he and I were doing drip campaigns, email marketing, way before it became popular. We were using zip drip systems. That was an actual, like a system that you would go in, you would fill out everything on a form. And when you'd submit that form, the company you sent it to would then mass mail that out. Like they would be the ones handling that until it became, something where you could use like GetResponse, Aweber, ActiveCampaign. So we were familiar with this. And of course I found out later he was actually doing his own like sales thing. Like he was doing $1,000 program that I didn't even know that he was doing. And when I got into the sales funnel industry, like officially, and I told him about it, he's like, you should check out this guy, Russell Brunson. And as soon as he said it, I'm like, yeah, I've been studying Russell for a couple of years here. This is good. So we found ways to connect. But this, again, ties back to my early 20s, where he introduced me to Dr. Wayne Dyer and gave me audio recordings of an audio session that Dr. Dyer had done with the power of intention. And he started, like, it captivated me. And I'm like, I'm just going to keep listening. Because again, he starts talking about like God and stuff, and he starts talking about infinity and eternity, and starts blowing my mind a little bit of like what the world would exist like and be like without me. Like, what would the world still go on? And obviously the clear answer is yes. The world will still exist whether you and I are in it. And that thought process, I'd never really thought about it. Like, I'm in my early 20s now and still listening to it. And I'm like, that's so weird. Like, how am I supposed to exist? Like, think about that. And the idea is that it allowed me to let go of some of the things that I was holding on to so hard. It allowed me to breathe fresh air. Well, fresh as far as you want for this planet right now, but fresh air thoughts of, I don't have to be what people told me I need to be. If I want to be a pastor, it's because I want to help make a difference in a world like that. And of course, I took like work aptitudes, and it said pastor and lawyer were like my top two. And I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Like the analyst in me and the educator in me are like, yeah, that makes sense 100%. But I wanted to share with you a little bit of the power of intention. Of course, I had the book, and I don't have the cover on it anymore, which is fine because he talks about like, having your books out there without your name or like your face being there. And here I am doing a video podcast for you with my face kind of everywhere. So maybe I shouldn't, maybe. Anyway, so he talks about like different matches happening in your life. And he talked about the match game. And that was really fun for me because I grew up with my aunt when she would watch me over the summer, and I would watch like Match Game with her. I would watch Price is Right. I would watch Pressure Luck. I'd watch $10,000 Pyramid. Like, I'd watch all these older game shows. And it was really, so when he started mentioning the match game, it's like, you have to say something or the question would be given to you, and you have to fill in the blank of whatever it would be that they would say. And you would then take your answer, and there was a panelist of celebrities at that time that would then answer it as well before you answered. So everybody got the question, everybody had to write what they thought the answer would be, all blank, right? And whatever your answer would be, if you matched one of the celebrities, you got a point. I thought what a simple concept. What a simple, fun game concept to do, right? It's that whole like mind mystery of, are we going to say the right thing? Are we going to say the same thing? Is it going to make sense? So he makes mention of this about how we talk to ourselves. And I wanted to share a couple things with you where he'll be like, no match and match. Because when I was building out a goal program, I was like, when I do this, and I was trained by Dr. Shad Helmstetter. So when I'm building this on goal setting and self-talk for my clients, and one of the things I was doing in there is like, when we set our goals, we have an obstacle or a challenge, and we have an action step we want to take. And I did this in a way of, how are we going to phrase this? And I'm like, okay, well, instead of this, I don't know how to do it. Let's say I'm challenged with the idea of, and then write out whatever this obstacle is. And then your action is, I am in the process of, I am doing this, I am learning that. Like, it gives us an opportunity to shift the narrative. I'm like, where have I heard that before? Where has this come into play? And it's like, I know it's somewhere. So I'm flipping through all my books. I'm like, duh, the power of intention of what we're intending to have exist in our life is happening right now in our minds if we're going to allow it, right? So allow me to just kind of read a little bit about this. I'll share some articles and I'll let you go for the day. So this one comes into a couple sections where he talks about like thinking about what's missing in your life, thinking about the circumstances of your life, thinking about what has always been, a few of those. Think about what they want for you. I'm not going to read all of them, but I'll just give you a couple here and see if any of these resonate with you. And I'm not going to read the matches. I'll just read them no matches first. So let's see if any of these resonate, okay? No match. I don't have enough money. No match. My partner is grouchy and boring. No match. I'm not as attractive as I'd like to be, which could be like, look at me, I'm ugly. No match. I don't have enough vitality or energy. I'm tired all the time. I'm always tired. How about this one? I hate this place we're living in. It gives me the creeps. This house sucks, right? That's another way to. When I see myself in the mirror, I despise the fact that I'm nearsighted and out of shape. Nearsighted, come on, don't trigger me like that. I dislike the work I'm doing and the fact I'm not appreciated. That sometimes can hit home. Do you ever feel that way? I dislike the work I'm doing and the fact I'm not appreciated. I hate the fact that I'm sick so often, always seem to be getting colds. I've always been poor. I was raised on shortages and scarcity. I've always been poor. Think about that. We've always fought in this relationship. My children never show me any respect. I can't help feeling this way. It's my nature. I've always been this way. Does any of that? I can't be the only one. One of those has to be hitting you in a way that you're not okay with. And maybe it brought up a lot of memories right now. Maybe it brought up something where even you start feeling in a way like you start feel that pressure pounding in your chest, like you almost might feel your palms getting sweaty, or a voice from somebody in the past. Your chest tightening up a little bit, like you're leaning forward, but you kind of lean back now, and then you're kind of crunched up, like you almost feel like you're holding yourself. You need a blanket. Those are fine responses. It lets us know that we're hitting something we need to deal with. So let me talk a little bit about some of these matches, okay? Again, I'm not going to read them all, just a couple of them. The no match. I don't have enough money. Match. I intend to attract unlimited abundance into my life. You might think, nah, it doesn't make sense. Try it. Because your phrase, I don't have enough money, that happens. So try it. I intend to attract unlimited abundance into my life. You can even change that. I intend to attract the wealth into my life that I've been seeking, I've been searching for. It's whatever you're intending, because that's where your brain's going to be like, okay, let's make this happen. Your core is going to focus on that. No match. My partner is grouchy and boring. Match. I intend to focus my thoughts on what I love about my partner. He goes into tons of stories about this. Like one of my favorite is it was a in-law. I'm not going to tell you the story. You just have to look it up. Do a Dr. Wayne Dyer power of intention in-law story, something like that. You might find it. No match. I'm not as attractive as I'd like to be. Match. Be vulnerable for this for a moment. I'm perfect in the eyes of God, a divine manifestation of the process of creation. You know, there's a lot of times I had to do that personally for me. I was called stick figure, four eyes, you name it. Like just the roughness that comes with people sometimes being like that, you know? It's rough. And I accepted it. And I didn't need to. It was up to me. It doesn't matter what people are going to say to me. What am I saying to myself? I hate this place we're living in. It gives me the creeps. Match. I can see our new home in my mind, and I intend to be living in it within 6 months. I did that one. I actually started doing that one a couple months ago. We've been looking at some new homes, new different properties, just to expand our life. Not that we need it, it's just something that we do. Like sometimes we're just not happy with the current living situation. And we've caught ourselves, my wife and I, doing it often. It's like, man, I hate this. I hate that we're here. I was like, well, let's intend to think about the dream home that we would like and intend seeing ourselves there within, say, the next 9 months. A lot of stuff has been moving fast. When I see myself in the mirror, I despise the fact that I'm nearsighted and out of shape. Match. I am placing this drawing of how I intend to look right here on my mirror. The thing that we're going to go a little over time, the thing that matters the most here is that we're taking this unintended thought that we don't want to have, and we're giving ourselves the intended outcome that we're aiming for. But the thing is that we're not forcing this outcome. We're not forcing things to change. What we're doing is we're simply giving ourselves a different GPS location. We're not changing the vehicle overnight. We're not re-upping the engine. We're not changing the tires mid-drive. We're just giving ourselves a chance to redestinate where we want to go. I don't think that's a word, but it is today. No match. I just like the work I'm doing and the fact that I'm not appreciated. Match. I'll act upon my inner intuitive impulses to create the work or job of my dreams. How about this one? We're going to end with this one. I'm going to do a couple articles I found just to give you ideas, and then we're going to wrap up. No match. I can't help feeling this way. It's my nature. I've always been this way. Match. I'm a divine creation, capable of thinking like my creator. I intend to substitute love and kindness for feelings of inadequacy. It's my choice. My Titans, you get to decide what happens. You may not get to decide every single outcome that occurs to you, but you get to decide. You get to be in a space to care about yourself enough to do something different. You get to be in a space that if you decide that you're tired, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then well, what are we intending? I intend to have my life surrounded by the divine health that my creator already exists in. Whether you believe scripture or not, no matter what you believe, there's got to be something we all came from and something we all go back to, right? And if we at least, we're not hurting anybody by believing that there be one creator, especially force it on other people, yeah, but we're not forcing our values onto each other. We're just sharing what we believe based on our experiences and our thoughts. I believe that there is one source of everything. I call it God for my own personal benefits of journeys I've been on, which I can share in later episodes. But I also know that if this creator has been described as perfect, not just by me, but by many, many others, then this creator must be perfect. Therefore, if I am a carbon image of my creator, and my creator is health, then I am health. Then I can live in intention of healthiness because of my creator. It doesn't mean I'll never get sick. It means that I can focus more on being healthy than being sick. I will be more healthy and less sick, which is true. I usually get sick maybe once or twice a year now instead of once or twice a month. Whatever we're intending to will happen. One article share, and then we're going to be done. Hang with me. You guys are doing great. So this comes from a gentleman on LinkedIn. It was a post that he made, Jeremy Pollack. I'm, again, not communicating with him. I'm not affiliating anything he does. I just read it the other day, and I'm like, you know what? This lines up with everything I'm talking about. So this is his post, and I'm going to wrap up. A few months ago, I realized that my team and I deserve a better work-life balance than having to work 5 days a week, every week. Now, he runs his own company, and he's CEO and all this kind of stuff. So my staff and I are now taking Fridays off. I also encourage everyone not to schedule meetings for at least half the day on Mondays. There is also now a monthly self-care budget for each person. Since implementing this, we have had the best quarter in terms of revenue and growth in company history. I'm convinced investing in your employees' well-being is one of the best investments you can make. This is happening across the world. This is not just you and I having a think tank discussion that is not affecting anybody. That post went mini viral. There were like 3,000 comments on it, lots of love on it. So I decided to follow him. It's like, as it hit my feed on LinkedIn, I'm like, I'm going to follow this guy. The point that I'm getting to you is this: if you want something to change and you want things to be better, and you are tired of starting conversations and then not ending them, or being stuck in this whole introvert extrovert thought process, if you're in that space and you're like, it's not going to get any better, I hate this, I blah 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 blah, you name it, whatever, throw whatever dart you want out there, you and I have the ability to take care of ourselves, to make that different, to choose different. And I would encourage you to do that. I support you 100%. If you are taking care of yourself and then taking care of your responsibilities and doing them better because you're taking care of yourself, you and I are on the same page. I love it. I will support that. So here's the biggest thing I'm going to ask of you today. We talked about a lot of material. And if you went through different segments, I typically don't ask it at the end of each segment because I don't know if you're listening all the way through, you're binging, whatever. But here is the biggest question. I'm going to ask you this every single time we're done together. What is the biggest takeaway you have from our time together today? What was the biggest moment that stuck in you and that you're like, I love this? The biggest moment you're like, I don't really agree with this. The biggest thing that you can take away to try to implement now, to implement later. I would love to hear about it. I will have my contact information in the show notes. I am working on getting everybody's emails signed up because I had a few people that are like, I'd like to know what's going on before it goes on. Trust me, I'm in that camp. I was having some challenges with the tech side. I'm waiting on support to get back to me on that. But in the meantime, I will have my direct email there, so you can shoot me an email. If you're cool, I'm going to put you on the list just to let you know when episodes are going out, if anything changes with the show, things like that. But just know this. Know that I care about you. Know that I appreciate you. And know that today is a great day. And even if you have not experienced it yet, tighten yourself. Hang in there. I know you will soon. Take care. Enjoy your day. Enjoy your evening. Enjoy whatever you're going to be doing next. And I will see you in the next episode.